My name is Amy Marks. I'm the Senior Vice President of Innovation and Sustainability at Compass Datacenters. And I'm going to talk for about 8 or 10 minutes about a framework around partnerships and prefabrication. And then we're going to go to our panel, and we have a few questions for our panel, but we want it to be incredibly interactive. So we are leaving plenty of time for questions. If you have questions in the middle of the panel, feel free to come up to the mic and ask us some things. I don't love the talk at you kind of thing. So just before I start, raise my hands. How many of you are manufacturers in the room? Woo! How many of you are in the construction space, more on the GC side, specialty subs? Okay, how many of you are end users? Okay, cool. They were like me, but how many architects and engineers? Okay, good that we're getting a few of you guys out here. And did I miss anybody? Academia or press or anything else? Did I miss anybody? Shout out if I missed your group. Press. Thanks, Rich, for coming. Again, losing out Bill Kleiman, losing Rich Miller. I feel very blessed right now. Okay, so we wanted to talk to you, again, our esteemed panel, not Murtaza Khan. That's his picture. Murtaza had an emergency, but we're very lucky that I did change it on here. Apologies. Shahad is actually joining us. Yeah, we've had an emergency, so when we do introductions, you'll see we have a different person. I thought I would start out by just saying how incredibly strange it is for me to watch the keynotes and hear all about industrialized construction and the manufacturing approach and prefabrication completely normalized. Like, if you don't have it, you're not building data centers. If you don't have it, you're not designing data centers. How many of you remember 10 years ago, it was not like that? It was completely different. And I remember going toe-to-toe, I won't say with who, at one of these conferences, a big, giant guy, and he said, prefab doesn't work. We'll never have that in the data centers. And I said, I actually think you're not correct. And look where we are today. So like a little tear comes to my eye almost in the keynotes when it's just a normal thing we talk about. Do you guys, anyone raise your hand if you remember when we did not have prefab in the data center space? And we were like, is it? Okay, yeah, remember, Rich? Well, right now what people are focused on is component-based prefabrication. So you're hearing, and just even walking through the exhibit hall, I saw a lot of products out there. I mean, I saw a lot of, I call them multi-trade hacks out there, and a lot of, some pipe spools and things like that. But you didn't see that before, but now we're seeing a lot of products, and people are selling products, they're selling kits of parts, components, and that's not really the end game here. And I think for those of you that are sort of new to prefabrication or new to the way industrialized construction works, that's only the beginning. And so what you're seeing now is some people are very successful when they're utilizing kits of parts, and some people are not. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why that is, to give you a little bit of a leg up. So most failures are actually not component-based. The product itself doesn't fail by itself. What ends up failing are where those products interface with other products when you've only optimized that part by itself, one-on-one type conversation with your vendor or whoever it is that's making that. And really where integration hits the field, and all of a sudden, as my dad used to say, for those of you who don't know me, my dad used to drive me around to job sites, and he would see a bunch of guys looking up in the ceiling, and he'd say, Amy, we're either making a shit ton of money right now or we're losing a shit ton of money right now. I don't know, but there is some sort of, I cursed, so it's good, we're good, Mark. It's either, there's some lack of information or misinformation that happened where you're either gonna make a lot of money or you're not. That's how the old days used to be, right? So that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Is integration in those kits of parts and those components and systems. And how many of you feel like you're reselling the same lessons every single project? Anyone feel like I just taught you that on the last job, why are we talking about that again? So most failures are not about components, they're about other things. So I would tell you that this is some new thought leadership this year that for me was a little bit of stuff that was running around in my brain that I wanted to get on paper, talk to some friends about it, they gave me some feedback on it. But really more of a systems view of industrialized construction. We all know about systems thinking. For me, being neurodivergent on the spectrum, I'm always thinking in systems and connections and pattern recognition and things like that. So this is a different way to really think about it. And if you think about where prefabrication really sits, it's only at level 1. So, and by the way, feel free to take photos of this framework, and I will give you copies of this presentation. It is a much longer presentation that I do at other conferences and one-on-ones and things like that, but I wanted to give you kind of the gist of it, and then we're gonna focus on only one of the levels today. But if you start out with that kit of parts, and then you think about that kit of parts, let's call it even a pipe rack right now, or our multi-trade hacks, they're part of the liquid cooling system, right? So how many of you are bringing in all of the vendors, all of the partners that are touching every part of that system and the adjacent systems and talking about optimizing that liquid cooling system together? I saw a couple eye rolls, actually, so I love that. People are like, no, we're not doing that. You may be talking to one of the partners about one component, but rarely do we see people getting together and talking about, is this the right thing for me to do or the right thing for you to do? Are we optimizing the entirety of the system of liquid cooling? And then, of course, we know that a data center is really made up of systems, right? So you have to think about the adjacent systems, the integrated systems that are going to touch those systems, and are we doing what's best for the data center, not just for that pipe rack, not just for that skid, not just for the liquid cooling as a system in and of itself. But I wanted to really make sure that you could spot some things and know when you have a trouble signal, when things are going well. And these are kind of like my anchoring tools for myself when I see things like, are we learning from project to project the same mistakes? Are we doing the same mistakes? Is commissioning becoming when we're doing integration? Is that when we're starting to think about integration, when all of a sudden we need to commission these and we have no time? So a lot of these trouble signals, every project is like you started over and it's like Groundhog's Day all over again. Is that happening? And so after you're going to the systems of systems, then you're looking at sub-ecosystems. And I remember years and years ago, I was actually in Singapore. I want to say this was like 12 years ago, and they were signing some data center contracts, and they were signing groups of subcontractors together, and they were actually writing into the contract that they had to have the same project manager for the next 3 data centers. And I remember coming back to the United States and talking about that, and people said, that's ridiculous. Why would you ever do that? Why would you hire the same group of subcontractors and not bid them out for 3 data centers? And what they also wrote into that contract was a savings target for every single time, because they were working with the same project managers, the same superintendents, and the same sub-ecosystem of partners that were learning from one another, and they were guaranteed to be on those next 3 jobs at the time. People thought I was nuts. They were like, never gonna happen here. So we are gonna talk a little bit about sub-ecosystems today, more in depth, because we have some of our sub-ecosystem partners here, and where integration just goes beyond the owner and just beyond what we're asking for. Remember, I always used to like to say the phrase, we would say in our industry, innovation happens when the owner requests it, right? The owner requires it. And I think we've moved far past that, and we need to think about how we work with each other, not just with the owner, but also the end users, but with each other as partners in the sub-ecosystem, and what it does when you have a repeatable, closely coupled partnership in your sub-ecosystem and how helpful that is. And then I will tell you that a friend of mine actually came to me and he's like, hey, we want to do more prefab. Could you maybe come and talk to us about doing more prefab? And I thought, well, tell me more about your organization. Tell me about what you're doing from the owner side. And they were talking to me about how they do contracts, about how their legal and risk management works, how their procurement team operates, how their construction team operates. And he said, yeah, we want to do more prefab. And I was like, you are not going to be doing more prefab. And he said, what do you mean? And I was like, you could have the best component parts and the best partners in the world, and you are not going to get this accomplished because you don't have the right contracts in place. You're not thinking about how you're going to change your procurement. You're not thinking about the owner's stack within your organization. For those of you who haven't seen Industrialized Construction Group's maturity assessment, it is a maturity assessment just about that. How mature are you as an organization? It was mostly given to fabricators over time. As an owner, Compass decided we were going to be the first owner to take that assessment so that we could recognize, are we doing things that are inhibiting us from doing more and more prefabrication? Are we making it harder for our partners? And they do a comprehensive study of your entire organization. We actually came out platinum. We're pretty proud of that. We're in rare air up there. But again, if you're not doing the right things, you can have great partners doing great component parts, and even if they know how to put a system in place, if you're not ready for that in your owner's ecosystem internally, you will not be successful. That's the hard truth I have to tell you today. So that was my warning sign. And then we are thinking about market ecosystems, right? So we're the only $14 trillion ecosystem that's yet to be touched by e-commerce. That's ridiculous when you think about that, that we don't even have an e-commerce marketplace. We have a lot of mini marketplaces coming up, but we don't have any real marketplace. So most people fail because they stop at just the kit of parts and they push the integration to the field. I would say today I'd love to focus on the fact that people say the word partner, but they don't mean partner up here. So they become very transactional. Also, we have to kill heroes, right? So like I said right to my friend, I'm like, I am the queen of prefab, they call me, but even I can't make you have prefab here. Like I can't. So it's not about individuals. We have to say if you win the lottery today, we have to still go on with you. But it's about that. And so I thought I would end on just a little touching on the sub-ecosystem. Again, the part that I think most people take for granted, and the fact that if every project looks like a reset and a learning curve, when you have to sit down and even if you're on an integrated form of agreement and you're like, who's on the small group this time? You know, it's like that doesn't make a sub-ecosystem. And you want to make sure that your partners design with you. That's a really good signal. If you recognize that you're doing iterations, partner together, designing as a group, that's good. If you're learning across projects, if the integration extends beyond you, if they're going out on other jobs, which I know they are, and they're like, hey, just like we did on Compass's job, we should actually do the scope like this instead of what they're asking us for. So with that, that's a little bit about the framework. I'll put it back to in totality, the framework picture for those of you who want to refer back. But at this point now, I'm going to introduce a little bit more of myself and maybe our panel. So thank you for listening to that part. I love a round of applause. I appreciate that. You know, it's early in the morning, we're old, it's good. So again, a quick introduction of myself. For those of you who don't know my background, I tell my panel, introduce yourself and say why people should actually listen to you. Like, there's a lot of opinions, but what people have done in their past and like where they came from is credibility, right? So I think I came out of the conventional construction world my whole life and then moved and bought a fabricator early days and fabricated for many years and then started the first of its kind prefabrication consultancy and continued to fabricate in the data center space and was cable landing stations for many years. But my background is lean and lean manufacturing, not lean construction, although I am trained in lean construction. But I was I like to say I'm a little bit of a dirty contractor, as we say.
So my name is Shahab Ahmed, and I have a 20-plus experience on the power side, means like from the sales, marketing, production, design, worked in different avenues with different customers in different roles, and now currently I'm part of a Siemens technical group, it's data center vertical, and glad to be part of the team here, and nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Jim.
Hey, okay, so my name is Jim Simonelli. I'm the CTO for Schneider's data center segment. Have been sort of in the data center industry for 34 plus years or so. But look, that's not what's interesting. We all can talk about how young we are. What's interesting is that the path comes from sure I'm a power guy, I'm a power electronics guy by background, but I quickly understood that it's not about, I mean, sometimes it's valuable to have, technically deep in one dimension, but it actually is about the system. I'm a system thinker by general, thinking about how things connect, not just because they're connecting in for fun, but because that way of thinking how to achieve more value by creative ways of connecting is really where the future is at. And I actually did start a formal system engineering practice inside, at that time it was APC, but then Schneider Electric at some point in time. And also similarly extended into sort of the drive for our prefab business back in 2010 to say, hey, this is probably going to be the delivery means for how to build constructions, if you build data centers, if you want the speed and certainty in that space. So that's the angle that I come at this right now, which is, yeah, I'm the CTO, so I'm looking out for where we have to be in the future, but I'm very cognizant of the fact that this is not a one-person thing. I take the word partner very seriously in terms of the fact that, particularly nowadays, that it is across the board. And super happy to be with this panel as well, because it's a good example of this as well. So more to come.
And Mark.
I'm Mark Policelli. I'm Chief Customer Officer and Senior Vice President of RK Industries. We do construction, manufacturing, advanced fabrication, and building services. So I say that because my background came out of the mechanical side. So I came up more on the non-electrical side. Our company has grown over the years to be able to bring in the electrical side, and we do a lot of that. So I'm 32 years in. If Jim's 34, I'm going to take I'll take the 32 years on that. A lot of data centers work. Started off in data centers when you used to have to wear a jacket in the middle of the summer to go to work and go inside the data center, and you were wearing stuff like that. So jumping on the partnership side, it's been one of the most incredible experiences what we're doing together with a couple other companies as well, with Compass leading the charge. The partnership goes both ways, and we'll jump into this a little bit deeper, but you've got to be able to push back as well on everybody at this table or everybody up here and the companies in order to make it work. So when you're developing a product, they're bringing you into this partnership to make sure that you're bringing your value to the table. So it's incredibly important that you're crew, not passenger. You don't sit in meetings and kind of sit back. So I want to get into that a little bit deeper when we dive into it.
Yeah, I think it's super
Partnership's
important.
tremendous.
So for those of you who don't know about Compass, we are single tenant hyperscalers. So we build giant campuses, and we have one tenant that is in that campus. So we also build 100-year campuses. So it's really fun to be the head of sustainability when our CEO will say, I can buy it for much more money now, but I don't have to replace it 3 times in the next 60 years. And if you say yes, he's like, why are we even talking about this? Just buy the more expensive thing. So I think it's really great. Compass actually, in our data center campuses, about 80 to 85% of what is in our data center comes out of a factory. So it's either coming from a manufacturer or from a fabricator that is assembling component parts. Over 80% of our data centers. So I want you to let that sink in. So whether that's precast or our pipe racks, our multi-trade racks, our skids, anything, we call it the white space modules, the multi-trade hacks. It is all coming from a factory and all being assembled on site. We don't even call our construction group construction. We call it delivery because we are delivering and assembling on site. And the only way we get there, really, to be honest, is the OFCI that we work with, our owner furnished contractor installed, is through closely coupled partners. We don't bid those at all. So if you come up and you want to talk to me about any one of the things that one of our partners make, I'm very honest and I just say, we buy from these people, that's it. Like that's what we do. We're married to them. So I thought a good next question would be, what are you making for Compass and how did that actually come about? Like if you can tell me a little bit about that. So Mark, I'll start with you.
So we do 2 products for Compass, really 3. We do the facilities water and the process water racks, the piping racks, which gets our steel company involved and also our piping group. And then we also do the water treatment skids, the assemblies for the water treatment skids, and send those out as packages. So we got involved early on. It's probably a year and a half ago now. We came in and the partnership has to be developed at the top. So it was an intense couple days. We came down, we took our C-suite and our leaders that were going to run it and flew down to Dallas for 2 days. And what we didn't realize is that we were somewhat pre-selected. At that point in time, they just had to make sure the handshakes were there. And the most intriguing thing they said to us was, you need to push back. I'm gonna keep on this point. You need to be at the table. You're not gonna get a set of drawings from us. You need to help develop those drawings. So the partnership was, we started out with a full-blown multi-trade rack. Does everybody know what a multi-trade rack is? So it had mechanical, electrical, everything on it, all the distribution, none of the wire being pulled, but we were gonna fabricate these racks. So it started out that way. And then really what truly became the next move was, that wasn't necessarily what needed to be done. So we went back to just the pipe racks. So over this series of time, we're working and we're getting introduced to more people. And one of the biggest concepts that enlightened me was the pushback. I keep mentioning it. But the second part is when we were sitting with Chris Crosby, and Chris basically said, look, we're going to manufacture this and we're going to manufacture it for a period of time. We're not going to do these evolutional changes, like every 10 minutes we're going to change something and go to a 16.1 and a 16.2 evolution or revolution at that point in time, you call it. So that was a big portion for us to where we could get into steady flow manufacturing. So that was an important part of the relationship. But Amy spearheaded the relationship for RK. We've been working together for 20 years, so she spearheaded it. And you are crew, not passenger, when you're working with Compass.
I think it's so interesting, like just to comment on your, last couple year evolution with Compass. I think I said something to Mark like, everything you wish could be true about an owner that you hoped for, I promise you, it's so much more than that. And you just have to trust. And he said, yes, of course, I'm sure you're right. And then afterwards, he's like, wow, this is very different, like a few months later. And I will say that I got permission to tell the story, so I hope you're okay with it. That originally they were doing some piping outside of the factory, and they went to a manufacturer to make some of the subcomponents. And there are a lot of unknown unknowns when you're coming up with new products together and designing and developing. There has to be a lot of trust, and we have different types of agreements for that because there's so many unknowns, and that takes a lot of trust to, basically, you're getting money in different ways than you're used to. And in a good way, I would say. But when it kind of leveled off for that particular product, the first one, they decided to move some of that in-house instead of like doing it with a different fabricator. And so they removed some margin on margin, and then they got real good at it real quickly all of a sudden because they're great fabricators. And they came back to Compass and said, we're going to give you some money back. And like, I don't mean like a little money back. I mean like fall out of your chair money back, because they're like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, this was the margin on margin. Here is some of the productivity gains we've had. We want to show you the productivity gains we've had outside of it. And it was a fantastic start, which is also why, shocking, they have more components they're making for us now. So it's like you made money by giving back money and getting trust and credibility and transparency. And now you have more components than you had when that even occurred, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Jim, do you want to talk a little bit about your
Yeah.
solution?
So look, let me just first start about the engagement with Compass, because where we are is probably not where we started. Where we started was with Chris and Compass is with a vision. Here's what I'm trying to do, and it was people that he trusted around the table to kind of go through that philosophy, understanding that very much standardization. And standardization with some degree of flexibility, but doing it at scale, repeating that space is the way forward. It's why they don't do everything. It's a philosophy of the business, knows it quite well. He wants people who think that same way. So as we came to the table to meet early on, Schneider Electric, put Vertiv, Siemens, others, we can all do everything, just to be clear. And we don't really we don't really care in the fact that what we're trying to do is we're trying to serve this mission here. So we sit around the table and figure out what's the best way to do this, who has the best competency today, who can scale in that space, where those parting lines need to be across our area is kind of where it started out. And as it evolved, it became very clear of the architecture was very open book, like with regard to what the sizing, what type of redundancy, how they were going to structure their sites, taking ideas from everybody. So we all kind of had inputs to it. And then it turned into, okay, I think this is how we want to go do this. What do you think? Schneider, I like what you do. You got a lot of the, power equipment inside. I want you guys to do the power centers. Okay. So that was, so we said, okay, we know how to do that, but it's not just that. It's about, okay, now we know that power centers has to interface with the cooling plants, with the multi-trade racks inside all those dimensions. And so while that was our vector, that's kind of where we started in the space. So that's kind of where we've gone. But similar to your story here, the goal was that once we do that, we had to scale. The vision of scale was not what we had capacity to do today. So the idea was that we also partnered to make sure that we could actually, if we're going to build more, let's build more near the area. So it drove us to put a factory and a plant cooperatively in an area that allows us to serve that space well. That's what a partnership means. And because we aren't changing, we are actually there's an expectation that we do more and more effectively, and every iteration gets better and better with time. And that's something that we're very transparent with. Amy knows the business. You don't pull anything over their eyes. They come in and go see, oh, okay, this is really good. I see you're doing well. What can we, how can we improve the next time as well? So that's how it evolved.
I don't know. I was in a meeting the other day and I said, how come we're doing this? And the guy said, I don't know. I have to ask. That guy is a prefab expert. And I said, oh, okay. I would love to learn like why we're doing this part. And I do learn every single day from our partners. And the guy is an expert. And I was like, wow, I never heard of that before. But I think the story that I love about you guys is that, I don't know if you caught that really quick moment where he just said, we co-developed a factory together on adjacent to our campus so that they could both serve Compass with things coming off that production line and others. And so I think that's like, if you haven't read The Toyota Way, you should, because again, just like they make cars and computers and things like that, we are co-locating with our closely coupled partners. Most companies, when you're fabricating, you're like, I don't want to buy that piece of equipment because I don't really know if we're going to need that. And we're talking about co-developing millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars in facilities to be next to one another. That is the difference. That's how you know you're a real partner, right? When you have scale and you can bank on it. I always say our partners, we both write checks. Like, we're not buying from our partners. We are both writing checks to be partners. And it takes a lot of trust and investment together. So thanks for that. Do you want to share about Siemens?
Yeah, sure. So it all, as we said, like you actually rightly mentioned, that partnership is just like a marriage. So marriage needs to happen at all levels. So it started with the C-suite, meeting C-suite, warm and fuzzy at the top level, and then starting how we can develop a long-term agreement so that we can have a visibility of capacity, what campus needs at this point of time, and also like basically we all have different, very diverse portfolios. So we shared each and every capability from Siemens, where we can support the most. So it was like decided, okay, RMU skids is the main thing which we can support it. We can start with that. So as a partnership on the design side, the design teams meet each other and then standardize on what design we can follow, which could be like considered as a long-term no change as a design, so that we can actually get the capacity, how much, what is needed. And I'm glad that the management level supported and actually started a dedicated production lines for Compass, just near our Raleigh facility, so that we can support as a partner. And it is just, I would say, a start. There's a long way, and we stay hand in hand and willing to expand.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know as well, Vertiv is one of our other partners, and we co-developed that. I think they're calling it the Cool Flex phase. I always say, I don't know their go-to-market names of a lot of the stuff, but their multi-trade hack, as well as their hybrid air and liquid cooling, was designed. And I think Chris believes truly that if we can help co-develop products for ourselves, they should be offered up to the industry so we can like rise all boats. And I think that's why people often say Chris's name when they're thinking about good data centers that do the right thing for the industry. So a question for you all, and maybe I'll start with you, Jim, is what over this time period were there any like big surprises? Was there a lesson, aha moment for you that you've really learned? Was there anything like, we always say failure on the path to success, obviously. So we always learn from making mistakes, but it doesn't have to be one of those things. Like, what was surprising or for you at Siemens, or sorry, at Schneider? That was
The two
sorry,
S's.
just interchangeable names of our partners.
Like
Sorry about that, Schneider. Two
Yeah,
S's.
yeah.
That was hard.
So I'll speak in general. Then I want to point out a specific example. So one of the more surprising things when working with Compass in general has been kind of two things. Is one is it's very much a two-way street. So Nancy, Adil, and those things, they're very into the designs. They know how the system works. Very good at giving feedback and also listening to our feedback in that space. Again, it's a little atypical. Typically, it is build this, I'll worry about the details, but it's very much a two-way conversation. In reality, it's almost a four-way conversation. So it's Siemens here, Vertiv could be right here, RK is right here. We all talk, and we have to talk because we all have to work together. And they kind of foster that, that type of environment. So every time you're in a meeting, it's not really, it's not one-to-one to one-to-one. We actually do collaborate and talk across it. That was like a very different vibe to it in that space. The second thing is you stuck to it, not stuck to it, which is the repeatability dimension. So in addition to us both kind of contributing our own capital to support the future growth, because we all are in this space, but we know in the fabrication business is that if you're trying to build in a factory, you got to get that muscle. And the worst thing is to change that muscle. And I think, this partner knows that really, really well. So even if it might not be the most cost effective, they know that change can slow down velocity, and that change, if you're in can also put risk in quality. And that was the other commitment to it. The second thing is, so we recently started to provide what we call the multi-trade, hack in that space and collaborators. Our first one was crap. I mean, it was not very good. And I hope I don't have colleagues in this room, but it really was not very. It was not very.
John Muscatello.
Where
are you, John?
And and it's about, hey, go look what RK did. Go look what Vertiv did. You take these lessons. It's not quite the same because they have different assembly processes, but that was kind of one of the things where we thought we were in tune. And I don't want to say got a little bit complacent, but they was, oh, I think we know what you want. This is what it works. And then when we first produced it, it was, the finish wasn't quite what it needed to be. There was other things in that space that enable us. And again, it was the openness to kind of go look at, well, what others had done in that space to help us improve as well. So that was kind of the one area where it was, think of it as, very proud. Oh, here it is, nearly on time. It's like, okay, go back to the drawing board, and it wasn't. Okay, you suck. You never get a chance to. Can I say that?
I said the S word.
I'm with Amy. We can curse. We curse all the time.
From the East Coast.
All three.
All three. Yeah. So anyway, so that was the lesson learned.
Yeah, I mean, you're our partner. You make mistakes, we make mistakes, and we learn from that and we move on. And like, you're still providing those for us. So it's not like you got a one shot and if you didn't do it perfectly, it's over. We didn't even know what it was going to look like, and so we all had to come together and figure out, well, does it work? I think the interesting part about the fact that we went to you and to Vertiv for those is that we went to you because you're already our partners. And you may not know how to do one of those things, or you hadn't done so many of them, but we'd rather do it with one of our partners that we know culturally we have an alignment with and a fit, that knows how to do product development, than somebody who we don't know that may have a good product out there, but optimizing that one component isn't the goal. And so I think that's interesting about that. Mark, do you have anything you want to share
Sure.
about surprises?
The biggest surprise was they did what they said they were going to do. I mean, we all get fluffy on the upfront stuff and say we're going to go, this is going to be the greatest partnership in the world. We're going to go out and have a nice dinner. Life's good. We're getting going. And then it gets handed over to operations or production, and they're like, why the hell did you even bring this through the door? My biggest lesson learned was they did what they said they were going to do. So when we met, Chris made the decision that afternoon. He walked in and said, welcome. That's how he reintroduced himself. I had known him, but he introduced our CEO. He's like, welcome to the team. And our CEO was looking at me like, the hell just happened? I'm like, just keep going. We're moving forward on this. So I would say that part to date has been 100% accurate, but it's still, when we got some of our folks here, when we introduce somebody new to the program, they're like, are you sure we have all these POs for all this stuff and we're going to do this and we're going to do it? Now, the part where Jim was so honest about on the hack, I'm going to tell you what happened to us, and I mentioned it earlier. So we transitioned into product development, and we're sitting around the table, and our guys are just like, I'm getting texts from people. I'm like, you got to speak up. You got to speak up. They don't want to hear from me. You're already down the road. They want to talk to the people that are doing it. So we had it pre-product development to where our people were told, your opinion matters. Tell us what's on your mind. You're the expert. We don't put pipe together at Compass, and we don't put them on racks. You need to tell us. So that open and honesty happened pre-development, which was kind of fortunate for us. But we did. We showed up like we were working for hyperscaler XYZ or, Colo, MNP. And that lesson learned has changed the culture in our company. The biggest thing that our team couldn't comprehend, just like these two gentlemen mentioned, we have 2 purpose-built facilities that Compass was a part of for the pipe racks and one for the water skids. And to this day, our banking groups and the people, we're a privately held company, so I'm very close with our financial partners. They don't believe that this exists. They had to be, it was meeting after meeting. What do you mean they're going to help you? What's the catch here? So when we opened up to their openness is when the valve cracked fully open and things started to change.
Yeah. What do you think, Shahab? And want to join in on this?
Yeah, sure. So the way it started, so the big surprise and a good surprise we got is that, okay, visibility of the capacity or visibility of how much scale Compass is looking for, and actually when it comes to materialization, we saw that what Compass saw, it actually comes into picture and it's real. It's happening, and that give us a chance to actually expand and provide the production facility that could support that kind of scale and on time, actually to comply with the schedule and everything. And we started with the few skids, and then we learn how we can actually, based on the timeline and schedule needs, we have to go a little bit diverse on the portfolio. And thankfully, like Siemens has a pretty diverse portfolio that we could support. And that's how it started, and it's still, I guess, going good.
I think Chris always says, he's like, we want our partners to think we are their best customer and they make the most money on us. And he would say that you don't screw over your best customer. You just don't. Right. So that is a partnership. You make good money. We have what we need. We feel like we have the lowest total cost of ownership to produce our data centers and develop our data centers also. So we're doing the fastest data centers and at the lowest total cost and our partners are making the most money. So that is possible to do at the same time. Let's talk really quick before we go to questions of like, if you think one thing or two things that you think is coming in the future, and if you can springboard off some of the scale. I always say, like, this is the best thing you can have as a customer that brings you scale, because it's like the movie Step Brothers. We made bunk beds, so we have so much more room for activities now to innovate. I love that. I'm getting the fist pump in the back. And so, like, because we don't have to worry about transactions, like, what can you springboard off of this for the future that you think is coming?
Okay, so I plugged the future into chat this morning to answer this question to see what it came up. So we're going to go with more modular solutions, less buildings, blah, 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 blah. Here's the deal. It's the culture of how this is happening. You can't put a black and white. I'll let these guys talk about the smart guys talk about the systems. I'm going to tell you about the culture. You can't put black and white bullet points together that are going to explain how this works. It's people that got into a room. There was a vision by their CEO, and we're enacting that vision. But it was all of our senior leadership, and it's not the senior leadership. You should see our people on our floor that are working on these products. The culture, are actually on time to work got better with this new facility that we opened up. And our other facilities are beautiful. We have 1 million square feet. But there was something about this vibe of the orders are there, all the pipe, we pre-ordered the pipe. So that cultural side of what's going on is the big thing. My second push on this is training. So we have our own in-house 4-year apprenticeship program for all 7 of our business units. I believe the future is around training. People need to know everything about data centers and what we're doing. We as a team are doing a horrible job of fighting the public on some of the water issues, and I'm not getting political here or anything, but we've got to do a better job to do that, and especially with the next generation that's coming up, they need to be trained on how we do things and how Compass, that this does exist. There are businesses that exist that way. So that's what I see the future. I'm going on people and I'm going on culture.
I love it.
That's good. So
Wait, let me save you to the last. I love to give you the last one.
All right, I'm
Because you're a future guy. You're like a futurist.
I'm a future guy.
Okay,
I'm a
Shahab,
future guy.
you're a closer.
Closer. All right.
Yeah.
Number 4. It says clean.
So with Siemens perspective, it is just a start at this point of time. So looking forward, we have different venues which we are planning to extend on. First of all, like starting with this RMU skids design, the next phase is, okay, how we can support Compass in field when everything is installed, commissioned, and done. So the second part is, okay, how we can have a customized service plan so that we can take care of your equipment to the end of the life, and that's something we are working on. Then obviously more and more digitalization coming into picture, like an optimization of the existing design so that we can keep optimizing our cost together. And obviously, as our colleague mentioned on the training part, like Siemens as part of like offering the Power Academy. So the Power Academy main goal is that we train our partners as soon as like we deliver something, then partners should be trained on that product so that they have that understanding of the product that would lead to a more reliable and long-term partnership here.
Okay, Jim hit it out of the park.
All right, here's a cleanup. All right, and I'm going to say two things. One that doesn't change, but I want to hit back to the culture, which is you really have to know your partner's business's business. If that makes any sense. If you think about Compass, if we don't know the fact that we don't build data centers, our job is to support Compass to grow, and for Compass to grow, they have their own business model. So you have to really align, and they're different. And so that notion really kind of being at a visceral part of what makes the business model work, that's pulls us all the way through, which is a very people-oriented connection in that space. That's the cultural dimension. What I see as kind of the future to enable some of that is, we learned a lot collectively, particularly at Compass, with, I would call it the SPA, the smart people approach. You get people in a room, you build stuff, we know what we're doing in this space, and you learn a little bit from your mistakes. But you got smart people, you don't make too many mistakes. You put a lot on paper, you learn a bit in the field. That has to change. We have to go to, I'm from Boston, so I'll call it a WSPA, which is a wicked smart person approach, which really means that we need the interfaces, the learning has to be done in the digital domain first. We really should be thinking about how to build this data center digitally, simulate it, and this is not wacko stuff. This actually can be done today. Getting the right, we do a lot. The Compass invests so much in censoring and predicting to manage the operation phase in that space. To their credit, there was a lot of trial and error in that space, but there was a lot that we could do in this. So I do think that the wicked smart person approach is not about replacing people, but it's about enabling them with the advanced tools to be able to kind of work through these critical interfaces and see the benefits firsthand. So we are actually evolving at a much faster rate to support, in this case, Compass's growth further. So that's walk away with the wicked smart person enabled by digitization is
Love that.
the future.
We have time for a couple questions, so step on up to the mic, and challenges, we say. So I think we have a mic. Yeah, there's mics right there. And please say who you are and where you're from, because we love to know why we should listen to you.
Brandy Skaggs, this is tall. Brandy Skaggs from Integra. We GC and we manufacture for data centers. Getting the warm and fuzzies and all the culture stuff sounds great. How do you keep the egos in check? This is more for you, but I'm on construction sites. We got a million subs out there. This guy did wrong. This guy did, how do you keep this culture and they can all do it all, as Jim said, how do you get that to work?
So we have culture training, actually, and one of our core convictions is humility in, pride out. If you fill yourself with humility, you don't have room for pride. And we call it, we say we call each other up. So you can call Chris Crosby up by saying, hey, I think you're acting with a little bit of ego right now, Chris. We need to stop making assumptions and ask more questions, lead with curiosity. So it's built into our culture, that humility in, pride out, and that extends to all of our partners. And you hear us say it a lot, right? I would say
one of the deals is leave your ego at the door, leave your business card, your title. We all got titles, right? Leave it at the door. The goal is when we're sitting around the table, you can't tell an RK employee from a Schneider employee, from a Compass employee, from a Siemens employee, from a Vertiv employee. That again, you have to sit there and be part of it to believe it, but that's what's going on, and we're not blowing wind up anybody's skirt, excuse my French.
I also think that Compass comes first. We work for Compass and the value of the company, what we can do to make Compass better. And there's a lot of culture training in that. And you don't really get good at the culture until you've been there 2 years. And all the culture tools and trainings that we have, mandatory culture trainings all the time.
My name is Alok. I'm from Baker Risk. I represent the Canada office. I wanted to know your thoughts about the energy demand going forward behind the meter versus on-site energy generation. And I have a follow-up question on that.
As far as are we going to go behind the meter, or are people going behind the meter? I think people have to develop behind the meter now. Whether we are going to do it or not remains to be seen. But I think we have to be more partners with the communities that we serve in totality, whether that's on water or food scarcity or training and development or power usage. I think that's just obvious that we have to do that in some way.
Okay, so you prefer power generation behind the meter over on-site generation.
So I'm not saying we prefer any of those things. I think we explore all options right now, and we're not power generators by nature. We're developers, Class A developers. So I think companies should do what they do best, and we're Class A developers. That's what we do. And do we have innovation and exploratory things on a lot of different things all the time? Yes. Do we have an innovation framework with criteria? Yes. I think that will be new business models moving forward at some point for most of all, if not all, the data centers. I just learned tons about nuclear yesterday from the woman from Oric. I thought it was incredible, and I posted it up right to our leadership team because we have an open conversation at all times with our C-suite.
All right, cool, thanks.
Any challenges or other? You got one more. I love this.
I got a challenge.
Yeah, come on.
Stanley Schultz, practice leader for data centers at Orr Malcolm. I won't give you the full resume, otherwise we'll be here for another 30 minutes.
Confident?
I think a lot of times with industrialized construction, it falls short to building in a warehouse. And a lot of people talk about manufacturing, but don't really utilize the advantages of manufacturing. So I'm curious what methodologies or evidence-based practices you guys use to support your product development and strategy when you're deploying your methods for developing, not just, I'm not talking equipment, but like the actual packaged product.
I gotcha. People build in warehouses because they don't have scale with their partners. They're like, oh, we can just do it in a warehouse. And GCs have egos. No offense to my GCs. I'm an equal opportunity offender. They're like, how hard could it be? Our mechanical guys do it. And then they realize how hard it is. But they don't actually invest in manufacturing tools and technologies because they don't have scale. Unlike our partners who have scale. And I'll let them speak to that.
So we started out as a contractor. There's no doubt about it and what we were doing. And yes, I built product in a warehouse and people went to the product. We've evolved over the last 10 years to bring people in that have said to me, I've been with our company for over 25 years. They said to me, kind of stay over here. This is the way we're doing it. And this is the why. So you have to have the mindset in a leadership position to evolve the people that are coming in and the processes. And you have to listen and you have to train and you have to step out of the way because it's so easy to go run to the product rather than have the product move to the people. And the product has to move to the people and stations. But in order to do that, you need to have the right people on board. So it's a big evolution. And there are a lot of people that are still building construction in a warehouse. We moved away from that due to, or by bringing the right people involved. Getting the right people involved, I should say, and processes.
Do you want to add to that?
Just real quick, I would say is that look at having we're predominantly a manufacturer, so we know factory automation very, very well. We did start in prefab. It's almost like you just kind of build a warehouse, you bring the trades in, and then this trades next week. That's not how it is right now. It is much more a factory area where you invest in automation equipment. You invest in the things that you would do in a factory to keep a linear flow across an area, which is really painful if you don't have the flow of goods and the repeatability, which is why, it does actually, and you can see them, you can see all those. If you're doing a one-up type thing, it looks like a warehouse construction. Yeah. But if you actually get to something where there's a little bit of scale and there's just the similar, they do look like production lines, and therefore there is the trades that are on, there's still trades on premise for sure, but there is a more dominant, we would just consider factory labor hours in that space. We train them that way as well.
And we work with ICG, I think I mentioned before, so we want our partners to take the Industrialized Construction Maturity Assessment, which goes over like 75 different points of manufacturing capabilities, so that we have a combined roadmap of where we can all get better. Things like time studies, things like, what are you doing? Group technology work cells, line production, batch production. Like these are the level loaded production. We don't buy, we buy like from RK, like we buy from manufacturers and enterprise capacity agreements. There are not subcontractors that have contracts like that in this space, I would say, or haven't up until recently, potentially. But you have to buy differently and they have to build differently, and you have to promise them that they have scale, because no one's going to invest in welding robots unless they have scale, if they even need them. But yeah. Anyone else? Good question, though, by the way. I agree with you. Warehouses suck.
So to follow up on that, how do you, I guess it seems like a chicken and the egg kind of problem, right? Because so I work at a polypropylene company, right? So we do a lot of prefabrication, but we are building in a warehouse. It takes a lot of investment to get to that manufacturing stage. But if you're not at that manufacturing stage, companies like Compass or something like that won't partner with you because they don't see that you have scaled.
Right.
So how do you make that jump to say it's like, hey, we can get there, but who's the capital come from? Who takes that risk? Is it like a partnership or that?
It is for us. It is a risk financially partnership in our case. I'll give you my best advice, having been a small fabricator, woman owned, which by the way, Schneider was the nicest company to me as a small woman owned fabricator that exists on this planet. And I say that in truth. And what will help you is sometimes it's not your best product that you want to go out and hit a home run. You got to have incremental gains. If you can do smaller products, single trade, even that keep the lights on, and just get a little bit of scale with some single trade stuff and support others that are have those types of contracts. Like when we walk around the exhibit hall, I'm like, Mark buys more than I do. You should be talking to Mark. You should be talking to these guys. Like,
I love
you can
talking to end users.
but it's true, like, and you'll get scale. You may not have it direct to Compass, but you can get scale through one of the other partners that has scale, because those contracts do trickle down into their supply chains, and that you got it. And it might not be the first thing you'd think of that you could get scale at that would help support. Like I used to call my bathroom pods, but there were no such thing as bathroom pods, by the way, on this planet. Somebody just wrote me today. We did a tour 20 years ago on bathroom pods. We took a truck around the country with a bathroom pod on it. And we did bathroom pods because we were doing embassies, steel and concrete embassies. And we didn't have a small enough product that would pump out thousands of them. So we needed small assemblies. So we're like, what if we started making bathroom pods like they do in Europe? And it gave us like keep the lights on scale, so that when we had giant embassy work or giant hospital work, we could fill those gaps with stupid bathroom pods at the time. You know what I mean? Like, and we would have never thought like that would have kept our lights on at the time. So
Yeah, we're passing the gratitude on from our relationship to other people. So if you want to chat after this, I'd be more than happy to sit down and talk with you outside of here, or anybody else that wants to talk about it. But we understand we're in a really good spot and we need to earn that, keep that. But you also got to bring people along for the ride too as well. And it's not a ride for the journey, I should say.
It is a great beer conversation because we all went through the bumps and starts. It's not, you get lucky sometimes. You do some weird stuff. You got to keep, you have to say yes because you got to pay bills sometimes, which you'd rather not to. You have to say no sometimes. So it's really bumpy. We all kind of get through there. And then at some point you just got to say, I think I'm big enough. Do I make another capital investment to that space? And that's how you get there. That's a beer conversation.
talk to your friends. I'm looking at Riley and I out there, and we've had these kind of conversations. Just I'm going to throw you up for a minute. Like they're new into the space and like approached me, and I just said like, I don't think that business works here at all. I'm like, call friends, call people, and instead we were like, we think this works. And he's like, yeah, well, and then I said, talk to these other 10 people about that business model, see if it works and tweak it. I think people are very generous in this space with their time and their opinions and will help you. You just have to reach out and talk to people more than just like selling them. You have to really go and speak to people and get time with them. With that, I think we're out of time. I'm going to be honest and tell you that I actually have to run to another talk across town. But if you want to talk to me, I have another talk at 3:30 with Schneider, and I will spend all of my time after that speaking to anyone that wants to speak to me. But you'll see me running out in my high heels out to catch a cab. But these guys are going to be here.
I'm with you, Amy.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
So thank you all so much, and I really appreciate your time. And thanks for coming to us instead of Bill Kleiman.
I trust these guys.